Your next reading is International Trade and Capital Flows. First LOS, compare gross domestic product and gross national product. This is clearly related to your previous reading. Gross domestic product is consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports. Right? So the market value of goods and services in a country during a specified period of time. The market value of all production activities in a country during a specified period of time. It measures income only within a country, but this GNP includes income from foreign sources. It's based upon the geographic area of production within the country. It's based on the location of ownership. So basically, gross national product GNP is GDP plus net overseas property income. Your next LOS is describe the benefits and cost of international trade. First, benefits of international trade. There will be more economic welfare. High price exports and lower price imports increases overall economic welfare. Efficient allocation. Trade liberalization increases real GDP through more efficient allocation of resources. Domestic productivity benefits from foreign innovation. And overall, the global competition provides productivity of domestic firms. There will be more variety of goods and services for the consumers. Increased variety of goods through importation benefits consumers. Competition, yes, increased competition reduces monopoly power. And specialization leading to efficiency. If a country specializes in a particular product or group of products, this trade specialization encourages efficiency. So the next LOS is describe benefits and cost of international trade. The cost of international trade. The first cost element is domestic issues. International competition can hurt your domestic employment and income equality. Displaced workers. Less efficient firms in a country, they might be forced out, and resultantly it will displace workers. And finally, the third, global competition. An increase in imports causes domestic industries to compete with foreign companies, and they may not be able to compete well, and this could put that particular industry or company in trouble. Next, distinguish between comparative advantage and an absolute advantage. Absolute advantage refers to the uncontested superiority of a country or a business to produce a particular good better, whereas comparative advantage introduces the concept of opportunity cost as a factor for analyzing in choosing between different options for production diversification. Let us discuss this with some suitable means. Let's take an example. If the US takes 2 hours to produce 1 bottle of wine, comparatively the UK takes 3 hours to produce 1 bottle. So we can say that US has absolute advantage in wine, right? So US can produce 1 bottle in 2 hours, whereas UK takes 3 hours to produce 1 bottle, right? So in this case, US has absolute advantage. Now, let's take another item. If US takes 5 hours to produce 1 piece of cloth, and UK takes just 4 hours to produce a similar piece of cloth, so we can say that in this case, UK has absolute advantage in cloth, right? Here, US has absolute advantage in wine, UK has absolute advantage in cloth. Now, what is comparative advantage? The idea of absolute advantage was developed by Adam Smith in 1776, whereas the idea of comparative advantage was developed by David Ricardo in 1817 to explain that exporting between US and UK, import-export, can be beneficial to both trading partners. Since the US is more efficient in wine, it should focus on wines, and the UK should focus on cloth, so they can trade with each other, and this way both of them can benefit. So total productivity and therefore consumption increases if they focus especially on the areas that they are good at. So the countries specializing in their comparative advantages of goods and services benefits all trading partners, US, UK, maybe Germany, Pakistan, if they cannot bring in all. So all trading partners will benefit through most efficient use of limited resources. Your next LOS says explain the Ricardian and Heckscher-Ohlin models of trade and sources of comparative advantage in each model. Ricardian model suggests that countries without absolute advantages benefit from trade due to comparative advantages, and that's what we discussed in the previous LOS. Comparative advantage results from technology, not labor. And there is a general equilibrium model within this Ricardian model. And this model assumes that there is complete circular flow of money between trading partners. Then we have Heckscher-Ohlin model 1919. The first aspect of this model suggests that countries' comparative advantages are based on a relative scarcity of resources, meaning thereby specific countries tend to export those goods and services they most efficiently produce. A country with lots of farmland but little labor will export food and import labor-intensive products. And a country with oil reserves exports to a country with substantial gold and silver. Your next LOS says compare types of trade and capital restrictions and their economic implication. These are the trade restrictions. Tariffs. Tariffs basically is a tax on imported goods. Like if you purchase something, the tariff will increase the cost of purchase. Like in the US, 25% tariff on steel, 10% on aluminum. License. This is another trade restriction. Limited ability to import specific goods. If I want to purchase certain goods, I need to take license. Otherwise, I can't. So this requirement of obtaining a license will limit the ability of importers to import goods. Like Mexico requires import license for eggs, wood, and furs from the US. Import quotas. This is the physical quantity limit. Restriction on the amount of specific good that can be imported. Like let's say in Pakistan, not more than 100 Lamborghinis can be imported. So 100 quantity restriction is what you call the import quota. Then voluntary export restraints. Restrictions created by the exporting nation, like Japanese companies agreed to restrain exports of autos to the US under the President Reagan. So this is voluntary export restraint, that they won't sell beyond this limit. Then local content requirements. Sometimes countries want to restrict imports by forcing foreign countries to use domestic inputs, like European Union pressuring Netflix and Amazon to maintain a minimum of 20% European content. This is the restriction. And then finally, administrative red tapeism. You make importation of goods and services administratively difficult. There are so many stages and approvals required before goods or services could be imported. So this administrative red tapeism will slow down the process of importation, thereby serving as a trade restriction. Alright, next LOS is compare types of trade and capital restrictions and their economic implication. First, capital restriction. Capital restrictions is a control of flow of investment capital between countries. Like European Central Bank froze Greece assets after Greece debt crisis a few years ago. So the federal government of Greece responded by closing its banks and installing capital controls that prevented any international monetary transfers. This is capital restriction. Trade restrictions. They're similar to capital restrictions. They're used to protect domestic markets and industries. But such restrictions can slow growth. More restrictions can mean higher domestic prices for goods. So trade restrictions are basically for goods and services, and capital restrictions affect the financial assets. Next LOS, explain motivation for and advantages of trading blocks, common markets, and economic unions. First, trading block. Trading block basically is a number of nations that work together to guard themselves against import and non-members, like APAC, Asian Pacific Corporation, ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations. These are trading blocks. Then common markets. Common markets represent nations imposing few or no duties on trade with one another. The good example is East African Common Market, in which we have Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, South Sudan, Tanzania, and Uganda. And finally, economic union. Economic union is a type of trading bloc utilizing common market with custom unions. The European Union is the best example. Then next extension of this LOS is, what are the motivations for such arrangements? First, new markets. Countries that cooperate can benefit each other's expertise to expand into new trading markets. Knowledge sharing. Countries can learn from each other to improve their domestic production efficiency. Availability of resources. Countries can share resources through strategic alliance. And finally, competition. Stronger competitive positioning helps reduce risk of new competition from other countries. Then what are the advantages? These were the motivations. Advantages of trading bloc. First advantage is free trade, unconstrained access to the markets of other members. Economies of scale, you can increase in markets, enable manufacturers to produce more goods globally, thereby reducing the average cost of production. Job creation. More trade means increasing domestic employment. And protection. Member countries are protected from cheaper imports competing with domestic goods. So that's the overall protection for all the member countries in a particular trading bloc. Then next LOS is describe the common objective of capital restrictions imposed by the government. The common objective. First is protecting domestic producers. Developing countries want to ensure that domestic producers are not acquired by foreigners. So this is one of the objectives, to protect local producers, that they're not taken over. Increase competition. Capital inflow can increase competition that forces domestic producers out of the market. So this is the reason why we place capital restriction. Government control. Government needs to maintain control over financial assets for taxation purposes. That's why there is a capital restriction. Stable economy. Capital restrictions can manage capital flow and prevent booms and busts. So for economic stability purpose, there are capital restrictions. Domestic savings. Ensuring domestic savings are invested in domestic investments and maintaining domestic ownership of local companies. So that's why we have capital restrictions imposed. Next, describe the balance of payment account, including their components. Balance of payment has three components: current account, financial account, and capital account. Current account details all the inflow and outflow of goods and services over a period of time. It calculates the balance of trade for a country, and in other words, total exports and imports, and determines the trade deficit if imports are more, or surplus if exports are more than imports. Financial account. This part of the balance of payment gives you the detail on international money flows related to investments. It includes all financial assets, or the assets owned by government, private assets held abroad, or foreign investments. And the capital account, these are the international capital transfers when we acquire or when you sell a non-financial and non-productive asset abroad. Your next LOS is explain how decision by consumers, firms, and government affects the balance of payments. Fairly straightforward LOS. If consumers go for more importation, firms and government, so you will have a deficit in your balance of payment. And conversely speaking, if spending by consumer, firms, and government on imports is less, then we will have a surplus. So basically, governments, consumers, firms, they all play their part in the balance of payment. Governments can intervene to affect the balance of payment. Government might place prohibition on expensive imports. Perhaps deflationary fiscal policies may reduce price and income levels. So, and at the same time, firms can also impact the balance of payment when they decide whether to invest domestically or in foreign countries to expand their businesses. So the last LOS describe functions and objectives of the international organization that facilitate trade, including the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, and the World Trade Organization. First, IMF, International Monetary Fund. This organization lends foreign currency to its members during the period of crisis, just a few years ago to Greece and about a few months ago to my country, Pakistan. Their focus is to promote exchange stability and enable expansion and balanced growth of international trade. World Trade Organization, WTO, it administers individual trade agreements and solves dispute between member nations. It ensures transparency of trade policies, and it acts as a source of economic analysis and research. And finally, World, not word minded, it's World Bank Group, WBG. It provides funds for projects in developing countries, and especially in the area that are underdeveloped in South Asia and in Africa. It helps create economic infrastructure significant to domestic financial markets. So that completes your international trade and capital flows.